Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is Elle, and I return today to speak to you on some spiritual philosophy topics, that being today about the dangers of channeling. So I understand that looking at some of my statistics, about 60% of you drop off after the first 30 seconds, so I need to just get right into it, don't I? So please hit the subscribe button. But I would like to tell you about the dangers of channeling. Everybody always wants to talk about how magical and awesome it is, but then they don't understand that they are opening themselves up to potential danger. So, what is that danger? What is it we're going to be talking about today? I'm going to give you a brief idea, and then I'm going to break them down for you. So, the dangers of channeling, we're going to be talking about what is channeling and sort of the dual nature of seeking positively or negatively. We're going to be talking about group protection, how you can do this with a group or alone. And there is the different types of channeling. There's conscious channeling, unconscious channeling. We're going to talk about how your polarization matters. In other words, your intention. Are you doing things to serve or not? And we can also talk about untuned channels and how they may be polluted and neutralized by negative seekers who wish to sort of put out that light that you're trying to share. And we can also talk about seeking proof and how it sort of relates to doom and prophecy, because if you've listened to a lot of channeling material before, you may you may be used to hearing a lot of things about doom. And in that as well, we'll talk about how to challenge contacts for channeling. So a lot of this is pretty high level adept stuff. However, just mostly information that I read out there and hear out there is fairly novice, in my opinion, in that it often just kind of reveals the wonderful, magical things about channeling, but then they miss a lot of the very important parts, which, like I've mentioned here already, can pollute their contact. In other words, sort of neutralize the whole positive aspects of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to share. So, like I said, I want to get right into it, and if I'd like to just give you one lesson to learn from this entire podcast before your short attention span changes the channel, it's that with channeling, it is safer to seek within yourself and connect to your higher self, for that is all contained within you, and it is a safe resource for you to access, versus if you try to channel something that is outside yourself, you then open yourself up to the possible, let me say, negative neutralizing effects of free will, which is that as you are positively seeking to serve others and you put a call out to channel something outside of yourself, you may get an answer which comes from either a positive or negative source, depending on how well tuned you are. If an untuned channel is seeking to channel something outside of themselves, in my opinion, this can be very dangerous, in that they can be opening themselves up to energies that they may not be wise enough to sort of battle with, if I may use that terminology. So what is channeling? Let's start with that. Channeling, you basically are channeling at all moments in all times. Now, sometimes you are more intentionally channeling, sometimes you are unintentionally channeling, but as I understand it, energy comes up through our body, up through the 7 chakras, and as you make your way through all 7 eventually and open yourself up into the indigo, into the 3rd eye chakra, you may open yourself up to, let's say, communication from other sources. So as we open ourselves up in that way, in attempting to seek communication in order to serve others, it will depend on what kind of seeker you are. Are you doing this to serve others, or are you maybe also a channeler who is attempting to serve the self? Because you can both, the way the universe works is you basically put out a call for information, and this is in general aspect, it doesn't even have to be doing with channeling, like this is you in your everyday life. You put out a call for information, and that call can be answered, and it can be answered in a way that offers you both equal positivity and equal negativity. Which is why we're going to get into the topics of challenging, as if you are going to be challenging a contact that may be outside yourself, which is a lot of the LL research material that I post and read to you guys is channeled from, let's say, outside sources. However, the people who are doing that channeling in that group, which is known as LL research, in my opinion, I like to use their channelings because, in my opinion, they are a well-tuned group. They do very well in terms of making a harmonized group, which then creates a sort of protection for them, in that then the information coming through seems to be more pure and, less sort of filled with distortions and biases of their own, and maybe even, less polluted with the whole doom and prophecy type stuff, because a lot of the LL research revolves around this lady named Carla Ruckert, and she, in my opinion, is a very pure soul who is polarized in the ways of service to others, and so she is very good at challenging contacts because of the pure nature of her intention to serve, I guess you could state. And I judge that to be a sort of pure intention, and therefore I judge that a lot of the information that comes through from them is sort of trustworthy. But that brings up the idea that no matter what you are doing in terms of reading, channeling information, or trying to channel yourself, there is always a high level of discernment that is encouraged, because there is going to be bias that comes through from the actual channeler themselves. The channeler themselves is filled with biases and concerns, and, to what degree that they're willing to let go of those things and open themselves up to the free giving and receivings of the universe in order to serve, and that channeling comes through purely, that type of channeling is less distorted versus somebody who holds on to things that are very important to them internally, and then that will distort the type of information that comes through them. And this is another reason why you would also want to be in that group protection, because a well-tuned group can offer a harmonization of all of your energies together, which then you can avoid a more personal eccentricity, a personal distortion from coming through into the group. And so let's just back up a bit here, because I would like to go back into group versus channeling, by an individual by themselves. So in my opinion, to try to channel on an individual basis by yourself is dangerous. You are not an adept, my friend. I'm sorry, you're probably not. And I don't think that necessarily, it's wise for you to do that type of thing. This is just my opinion. Whereas there can be sort of less perfection needed in the harmonization of a group. If there is a big group effort to come together to serve others, and that intention is well tuned in terms of being a sort of pure intention, then the challenging of the contact that you're trying to bring through to channel can be challenged, as they state, in the highest and best. So Carla, the main channeler of the LL research material, she does this when she challenges. She challenges in the name of, may I say, the truth of her being. And the truth of her being is that she sees Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. She sees the one infinite creator as Jesus Christ as well. If you know sort of the Christian Trinity, to say Jesus Christ is Lord, there is really no difference. So in her opinion, she challenges in the name of Jesus Christ. And these outside entities, such as Ra and some of the other entities that they channel, are able to answer this challenge. So she basically says, I challenge all contacts who I am to be channeling today, that they may only be channeled through me if they may answer that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior of our universe, the one infinite creator, and may they then, offer just my highest and best, and may the highest and best contact come through that can meet that challenge. And so because this is from the essence of the truth of her being, the purity in her challenging is quite powerful, in my opinion, in that then the highest and best, such as Ra, can then come through, and even though they're above the ideas of Jesus, they understand that the Jesus entity came as a sort of fourth chakra, heart chakra, fourth density, higher density being, which is more just like a perfect representation of the heart chakra of unconditional love. So for them to state that the Jesus is sort of like the heart chakra is the perfect representation of unconditional love, and is that the creator, they agree. And so they can answer that challenge and state, yes, we agree with you. We agree that unconditional love is of the creator, and we can meet that challenge. And so then they are sort of gained access into the entity, who then now, will do different types of channeling. So what are the two different types of channeling? There are two different types of channeling. There is conscious channeling and there is unconscious channeling. So conscious channeling is the more common one that you would read online if you're just reading random channelings from people. And so what conscious channeling is it's a safer way to channel, in my opinion. And this is once again with the protection of a group, because conscious channelings are often attempting to speak to something other than their higher self, so something outside of themselves, even though we're all one. I have to state it that way. So the conscious channeling is more like an outside entity then connects to this channeler, and they give concept communication, is my understanding. So in the conscious channeling, there is more opportunity for bias to be in the message, because what the channeler is doing is actually receiving concept communications. They're basically receiving a thought form. How to explain that? If we could read each other's minds, if we were telepathic, we would basically just send the idea of what we were trying to send to the other person, and we wouldn't have to try to translate it into words. We would just give them the thought form and they would immediately go, oh, I understand. But we are in third density. So what these entities do is they offer a concept, communication, a thought form, and then the channeler has to take that thought form and through their hopefully, minimal biased being, try to communicate that into English words, or I suppose not English words, but just words. And so there can be more bias and distortion coming through a conscious channeler as they attempt to translate the thought form communication into words. And it may depend on how sophisticated they are in terms of the types of words that they're able to use in order to sort of deliver an accurate message, if that makes sense. So with conscious channeling, there's more bias because there's more translation from the instrument, as they would call it, the channeler. Now, we have also unconscious channeling. So unconscious channeling is the type of channeling that the raw material is. So when raw came through, they note, hey, we are a narrow band contact. This means that they're very specific, like literally like a narrow band, like a laser coming into a being, as opposed to like a wide energy of light coming into a being. They're basically stating, hey, we are very specific in what we come to offer, and we can only offer what we're offering if it is in a certain level of purity of communication. And so the unconscious channeling, what happens is if the outside entity meets the challenging of the channel of the instrument, of the channeler, then the raw has stated in the material that what they basically do is they take, there's the channeler is a mind body spirit complex, and I might be a little bit off in this, but just to give you the idea is that they basically safely place the I guess the spirit complex elsewhere in some place safe in the universe, I don't know where, and then Ra, the outside entity, then will use the mind and the body of the instrument to basically move their mouth and to move their vocal cords to communicate the things that Ra would like to communicate. However, they still do have to use the mind of the entity, which they liked to use Carla's mind in that she was a librarian, so she knew a lot of different words. So she knew a lot of more accurate ways to define things and to describe things, and basically Ra then can use her library of words to communicate in the way that they do. But like I said, it's unconscious channeling, so she's more put under, if you will, like laying down, almost looking like she's asleep, and very slowly is her mouth moving. And in fact, if you go to lawof1.info and you click the little audio link right beside each quote, you can often hear Carla's channeling. It's very, very slow. It's very particular because, like they said, they're narrow band contact, and that's so they have to be very particular in even the words that they use. You notice Ross speaks in ridiculous language, and that's their narrow band contact attempting to be very particular in what they're coming to offer, because like they state in other places in the material that they come to offer a very specific message of unity, and if that message is not communicatable in a way, then they do not offer the message. They just cease to be in that instance. So they basically offer what they have, or they offer nothing. But the unconscious channeling is more dangerous, in my understanding, in that, because of the specifics of it, and because it's often done in a way that is to serve others, which we're going to talk about in a moment about polarization, it can open the self up to the potential to be misplaced, as they've stated. It's sort of like how Ra, puts the spirit complex in a safe place while they're channeling. That safe place can be taken advantage of by a negative entity. And I'm not going to go into that too much. It's a whole can of worms that we're going to have to open. But basically, unconscious channeling, you would want to be even more careful in terms of group protection, making sure it's a very well harmonized group that you're together with, that is has all their compass pointed in the direction of service to others so that they can avoid any sort of possible mishaps. And then let's talk about why would there be mishaps? What does that even mean, right? So polarization matters when it comes to channeling. So what is polarization? Well, my friends, like I was stating at the beginning, we are in a sort of dual, a place of duality, in which case we have service to others and we have service to self, and often that is described as positive or negative. I don't really need to explain it much more than that. So are you a positive or a negative entity in the universe? Or, you could even be somewhere in the middle where you're sort of in the sinkhole of indifference, where you sometimes call in a positive way and then you sometimes seek in a negative way, and then you got to go back and forth, and you fall in between, in the hole of the sinkhole of indifference. Try not to do that, my friends. But polarization matters. So polarization is sort of like your intention. Are you trying to channel things in order to serve others, or are you just doing it for the sake of fun and like, ooh, let's play with the Ouija board, right? So in my opinion, if you're just sort of doing it for, shall I say, shits and giggles, you shouldn't probably be mucking about in metaphysical things, haphazardly like that. But I would still think that you're in less danger, actually, because you're not doing it with the intention to serve. And so this comes into sort of a lot of metaphysical rules and laws, and I'll give you a brief idea of it. Like I was stating at the beginning, if you are a positively polarized entity and you put out a call to serve, you put out a call to sort of, do something positive, you are offered the opportunity for that outcome to be a positive or a negative outcome. In other words, you are provided a choice on how to serve, because it wouldn't be a true decision on your part if you weren't offered a full range of choices of how to be. So as you seek to serve others, you can open yourself to the positive outcome, but you have to be given the opportunity to have access to the negative outcome. And that means that as you are channeling with the intention to serve others, you become a target for the negative seekers, let's call them the negative entities, who see you as having the potential power to increase the harvest of other people. In other words, you have the potential power to enlighten other folks around you, and even yourself possibly. And so that is a source of power. You have become like a light, and a negative entity sees that light as a target and says, hey, look at that light. If I can put that light out or control it or neutralize it, then, I have done well in the ways of service to self, and therefore, great. So you get offered the opportunity, let's say, to be a target for a negative entity, but at the same time, if you sort of, I suppose, pass the test in that way, in the purity of your intentions, and you don't fall for some of the negative tricks, then the outcome can still be positive in that way. So polarization matters in that if you're doing the channeling in a intention to serve others, you just have to be a little bit more careful, because you are a power source, my friend, and just like moths to a light, it attracts visitors. So let's talk about what might be a polluted channeler, what might be a compromised channeler, what do they sound like? And this is really, really common, and probably the most interesting part of this, in my opinion. So you often have a lot of positive channelers. They, like I state, they have a positive intention to serve. However, we all have the possibility to have sort of ego distortions, right? Like none of us are perfect constantly. So here's a common recipe that I see with channelers that I used to watch and read a lot. And now I sort of have disconnected from that type of thing, because it seems that they always go down this route where they start out as positive channels, right? So they've created a big light, and that they're providing inspiration and service to others, and it's great and it's going well, and they've become, that positive light source to others. However, that positive light source has now become a target of a negative entity. So as you or the channeler has a weak point and sort of the ego distortions start to bubble up from below, they often come in the form of seeking proof, right? We often want to prove to others that this is the right way. This is the way to be, my friends, is to seek unity and to seek love. And so I want to prove to everyone that the aliens are going to come and save us, or that I would like to prove that spirituality is true. And the thing about proof is it's sketchy, my friends. We are in the third density, so to my understanding, there's sort of a metaphysical law of the third density, is that you can't really prove anything to other selves. You may be able to prove something personally to yourself through personal interpretation, but it would be against sort of the laws of free will for you to have a proof of the metaphysical truth of the universe that then you can just hold up in front of others and say, see, this is true, right? That would go against their free will. They need to be given the choice of how to seek, of how to view the universe. So every choice that they're given is given the opportunity to see something in a positive light, or possibly in a sort of negative, or, oh, this doesn't mean anything, you're crazy, right? And this is actually an aspect of channeling as to why channeling actually respects free will in that way, because if you listen to the content of the channeling, you often can gain things from it. But if you're a sort of naysayer, you would say, well, I mean, like, who the hell are you, talking to yourself, talking to the universe? Like, how do you know that this came from anyone but just that person? And fair enough. To be honest, maybe that's true, but even the content of the things that are coming through these channelers, in my opinion, are of such a wondrous and revelatory nature it almost, to me, doesn't matter where it comes from in the universe. It has provided me, wonderful answers to the types of questions that I seek. So the common thing is that the channelers, they start out positive, and then they are seeking some sort of proof, and then what happens is the negative entities can come in and essentially lie to them and preach doom and prophecy. So as we also, seek to prove things, and we want to, provide a certain date of when all of this harvest and all of this ascension stuff is going to happen, that's an ego distortion, my friend. You're trying to seek proof. You're trying to, seek a date, a time, a specific. Well, that is proof, and you're never going to get proof. But so what you then get instead is the opportunity for a lie to come through from a negative entity who would love to tell you a date, and would love to preach doom to you that says, oh, you're going to be saved, but first, all these terrible things are going to happen, and some of them may be true and they may be not, but the fact is that they're preaching doom to you. And so what happens is this pollutes the channel. You have a lot of wonderful people reading and listening to your inspirational channeled messages, and then one day these messages start coming through about prophecy, about certain dates and times of things, and then you'll notice that there starts to be a lot of doom and negative, anxious feelings that you get in your heart as you read this information. And so to me, that is a generally positive channeler who has unfortunately become susceptible to the negative traps of the negative entities who seek to put out that power. Because what always happens when the date comes, right? It's always they give you a date. Oh, 2024, this is going to happen, and all is going to be well. The aliens are going to come and save us, and the people get all excited and they get their hopes up, and then that date comes, and what happens to those people? They go, oh, what the hell? Like, that's not true at all. And then they start to question every single thing that channeler has provided them before, and they start to think, have I been duped? Like, this person clearly is lying, or they're mistaken or something. So then it puts question into every positive thing that happened prior to that event, and you can see how this then neutralizes the contact. So that is basically the most of what I would like to communicate here today, and just explain that, if you're going to be attempting to do any type of channeling, that it is best that you do it in the protection of a group, and that you learn also how to challenge entities in that way. And if you are not adept in that, or don't have a teacher to help you in that, then I would just suggest it's best that you seek within the self. The higher self is... And we all have a higher self, and what the higher self is, you in the sixth density, the halfway through sixth density. It's you from the technical future, if you would like to think of it this way. It's the amalgamation of every incarnation that you've had, and you have this higher self who, before you go into the seventh density, the law of foreverness, and you sink into the unity of oneness of the Creator, and become all, and seek and release your identity and become everything. You leave this aspect of yourself called the higher self. And that higher self is very close to the creator, right? Very close to the creator. So it is close to infinity and close to everything that you would possibly need to know and be informed upon. And so I always think that if you're unsure about channeling, the best thing to do is to seek within the self and to seek the higher self. You can't be unsafe if you're connecting with the higher self and sort of channeling your higher self in that way. In my opinion, I've always been told that is a safe thing to do because you can't really be open yourself up to things outside of yourself if you are seeking within. Okay, so I'm going to drop now 2 quotes on you quickly because I, am doing this now where I'm trying to put the quotes at the end of the podcast so as to have you guys actually listen to more of it, because I know you kind of drop off sometimes when we go into the quotes. So to my long attention span friends, this is from session 1215, and this is about the Untuned channel and how it is neutralized through seeds of doom and false prophecy by seeking proof. So 1215, the questioner asks, is it possible for an entity here on Earth to be so confused as to call both the Confederation and the Orion group in an alternating way, one then the other? Ra answers, I am wrong. It is entirely possible for the Untuned channel, as you call that service, to receive both positive and negative communications. If the entity at the base of its confusion is oriented towards service to others, the entity will begin to receive messages of doom. If the entity at the base of the complex of beingness is oriented towards service to self, the crusaders who in this case do not find it necessary to lie will simply begin to give the philosophy they are here to give. Many of your so-called contacts among your people have been confused and self-destructive because the channels were oriented towards service to others, but in the desire for proof were open to the lying information of the crusaders, who then were able to neutralize the effectiveness of the channel. End of quote. I don't really need to state anything there. I already explained it, but isn't it wonderful when they put it so succinct and eloquently? And so now we will read you the last quote, which is about the fear and doom. And this is not exactly, the questioner isn't exactly talking about channeling. They're talking about having a close encounter with a UFO type of thing. But in my opinion, this is still the same thing as channeling, because I've read this as well, where they basically state that if the channeling gives you, I know it sounds silly, but it gives you positive feelings, it's probably a positive contact. And if it seems to give you negative feelings, fears of anxiety, fear, doom, then you probably have a negative contact or maybe a polluted contact, right? So in session 53.17, Rajas mentions here, if there is fear and doom, the contact was quite likely of a negative nature. If the result is hope, friendly feelings, and the awakening of a positive feeling of purposeful service to others, the marks of Confederation contact are evident. End of quote. And Confederation contact is essentially positive entities seeking to serve the one infinite creator. So, my friends, I hope that was a little bit more of a realistic thing on channeling. It always annoys the crap out of me whenever I read or listen to other people online. They always want to just tell you all how fancy and awesome and magical all of this spiritual stuff is. And then, big bummer me has to come by and explain to you how you have a massive ego and how you have to be careful about those ego distortions, because they can manifest in many ways, often in the ways of seeking proof, and then you're leading yourself to preach prophecy and doom, which then sort of neutralizes your being. You want to seek to serve others. Well, my friend, if you would like to seek to serve others, then you would like to share the feelings of hope, friendly feelings, awakening of positive attitude, giving them a sense of mystery and infinity and service to others and love and unconditional love. If you're able to share those aspects with other people, whether they come from channeling or just from the channeling of your everyday being, which is also a channeling, right? You can also just do this with yourself on a daily basis as you set your intention to serve when you wake up in the morning, right? I seek to serve. I seek to serve. May I give my highest and best. May I try not to be petty and lowly in my communications with others, and may my triggers be internalized, and may I be a good human being, and may I attempt to do well and to serve and, be a loving force in this universe instead of hopefully, providing more confusion and despair and fear. We have enough of that going around. So although my message here sometimes is a little bit more down to earth, I do still hope you get a lot of the positive aspects out of that, my friends. So thank you so much for listening. If you can please subscribe to the channel, give this a like, leave me a comment. You can also go to the oneinfinitecreator.com, where I have links to all of this material from the LL Research, who provides us this for free. Thank you so much to them. And if you find value in what I do, I would very much appreciate it if you could jump on my Patreon or send me a one-time PayPal. I just want to give all of this for free, and so it is freely given. And so if you would like to freely give back, I am very appreciative of that. And if you don't have the abundance to do so, no worries, my friends. I am running on this faith that those who have abundance to share can, and they can essentially help me to provide this. So thank you to everybody who does do that. It means the world to me. I'm sorry that I have to end every podcast like this, but it's just the nature of how I can sort of protect the purity of this channel, in that I don't want to put anything behind a paywall. I just want to give it for free. And so I can do that by you supporting me freely as well. So thank you everybody that does that. I love you guys so much. I hope this was informative and fun, and I hope to keep the entertaining podcasts and informative podcasts coming your way. So let me know what you think, because I feel like my last couple podcasts, and hopefully this one, are a little bit more on point in terms of trying to find my flow of sharing my opinions immediately at the beginning, as I know that's often what you guys are here to listen to anyways, and then I can give you some more specific Law of One quotes at the end. So thank you guys. I hope you have a good week. Take care.